for some things you did that you shouldn't have done. And the reason I bring that up is if you look at us, you and I have tried for nearly 20 years to get this thing turned around. We believe that education is critical to it, that getting the truth out is critical to it. It's also critical, like you always say, to keep hope out there, but we have to get off our butts and actually do something.
Well,
we look back, and you and I both can tell people, though I'd rather we didn't, some of the reasons we may be paying a price physically or financially or whatever now from our past. Everybody's got that, and that's what this friend of Job was saying. You've got some stuff in your past. Don't think you're just better than everybody else. And I think that's where our people need to be. We've killed babies in this country. We are abusing our children in what they call public schools. We have a failed education system, a failed judicial system, and a failed church system. And here we sit and we blame people like those we have allowed into Washington when we're really in the place where we ought to say, okay, let's take our licks. We got ourselves into this mess. We didn't stand up when we should have, but we ought to stand up now and do something and say, no more. We ain't going to keep doing this.
now, the reason I got involved in this whole Patriot movement was because I was outraged with the what happened in Waco. 17 little children killed, their families killed, their parents killed, for basically having a well-armed, self-sufficient family farm, which is what I first envisioned Liberty Village becoming. And I've also, I conceived of Liberty Village because I had 5 acres out in the middle of nowhere in New Mexico. But the whole concept for the Liberty Village came about because I wanted to know, and I thought that we needed an answer. I had been reporting since 1994. I've been reporting on this radio show the takeover, the words of the New World Order. Now we can see a new world coming into view. Henceforth we pledge allegiance to the United Nations. I mean, that was George W. Bush telling us that. I was outraged by what happened in Waco. I was screaming at the television, sitting on my boat in Miami, going, where's the Texas Rangers? Where's the Sheriff's Department? Where's our DPS? Why are they letting this happen? Why are they letting this happen?
The sheriff there sat and watched it.
Yes. And suddenly because I started the militias, because I started my magazine and this radio show, I've been attacked, demonized, and tried to marginalize. And in doing my research in the history, this is what happens every time a communist regime takes over. Now, I don't know whether, as some rabbis say, like Rabbi Weiss, some call it communism, I call it Judaism for the masses. We're talking about complete control over everything you do. And the Bible warned us about that, but for 2,000 years we sat around and scratched our heads. What's the mark of the beast? What could that be? I can't buy or sell without it? No, that's gotta be crazy. No, we can't do that. They're not gonna do that. What are they talking about? Well, it took 2,000 years for technology to catch up with the Bible. And folks, what you're witnessing here, and what I've got, matter of fact, I've got one of the people in my chat room that sent a donation, and I sent him a copy of Mystery Babylon, which you've read, which is part of the curriculum of Timothy Bible College.
Right.
And it's got the history of the Rothschild, the history of the bankers, and I also in that book I refer to the whole Rothschild banking thing that we're seeing right now, that Occupy was protesting against. Control of our money, and our founding fathers warned us. Thomas Jefferson said, if you ever allow a private bank to issue your money, the banks and the corporations that spring up around them will leave your children homeless in the land that we conquer. We've got over 1 million families homeless this year, thanks to Bush and thanks to
let me interject something if I might, because you know I like to have a way of validating some of these things, and I hear people badmouth. First they badmouth me for using your material in the college, and then they'll badmouth you. Well, where did he get this? You know, he'd be beating up on some Jew somewhere named Rothschild. Here's what I did early on when I didn't know you very well, and you had anyway decided to help me promote Little Red Schoolhouses because you believed in that concept. I got your magazine, and I read the thing on the Rothschilds, and I said, okay, this is really foundational to teaching the truth about what has happened in this country, because it is a banking problem, or it is a money control problem. It is, according to what he says, this is the same thing happened in Germany, and that Rothschilds have been orchestrating most of the wars since. And I said, man, that's a pretty broad, touchy statement to make, and I went and researched it. And you can pick up almost any encyclopedia and look up the Rothschild history, and it's in there. It's not just something Clay Douglas made up or a tool you have used all on your own. The dictionary, the encyclopedias back you up. So it's valid information. The way you've couched it and the way you did it in Mystery Babylon puts all of the chronological data in proper order with some sense of direction, and it's very easy in your book to see how we got where we are and why.
And it all goes back to the money. Lincoln was assassinated because he didn't borrow the money. Kennedy was assassinated because he issued United States notes.
Well, he's going to take out the Federal Reserve.
Yes.
So he got taken out. And I don't think that's a mystery at all.
Now, again, back to the whole Liberty Village concept. I conceived that on a 5-acre plot. I thought if we could live together, I asked myself, how did people live 100 years ago, 2,000 years ago? How did they live? How did they live in the Bible? And the Bible, they got the same thing. They got the same problem, had the same problems with Egypt, with Syria, with the governments there that we do today. And as Richard Kelly Hoskins said, you know, the foundation of every civilization is the self-sufficient family farm. I think this world is the garden of Adam and Eve. This is a garden planet. And if you can grow your own food and generate your own electricity, your own power, we did that coming across America. We did it on the farms. We did it in the ranches. I mean, we pumped the water. We put generators on it. We lived like that. And I would like to restore that. And that could be done, Jake. Not just on property, not just on a ranch like you got. That could be done in a neighborhood on one square block. And you could go to your shop and say, we're going to do a sort of a neighborhood watch thing. We want to make people independent. We know the government's told us that in case of an EMP attack, the gas pumps might not work, the credit cards might not work, the computers might not work. So How do we prepare for that? Should we just sit and wait and allow FEMA to send the troops, the 400,000 well-armed, well-trained, organized, disciplined troops in to take care of us? Or should we start planning now? And I suggested just this week that we use the whole Green Beret approach. And I had a Green Beret featured in my film, True Face of FEMA. He asked Colonel John Brinkeroff, well, you know, are you talking about National Guard here, 400,000 National Guard? No, they're too expensive, and they're going to be in some other place. They're going to be in some other place. And like Iraq, like Afghanistan, Garden of Poppies. And why don't you just send us Green Berets out into the small towns, into the rural areas, and we can teach the people how to be self-sufficient and how to take care of them. And again, if you can generate your own power from everything God gave us, the wind and the solar, and you catch the rain on your roof if you don't live in Colorado, where it's illegal, you can survive. You can grow your own food, non-genetically modified, and all you got to do is go out and talk to your neighbors, knock on the door. And that just ain't happening. We don't know our neighbors. We're afraid of our neighbors. We do not know how to work together. And I'm the trolls that come in on my chat room while I'm trying to do the show are part of that. They try to divide and conquer. They don't support him. Don't buy his book. Oh, he stole everything. He did this. He did that. Yeah, we stole technology, the idea of windmills from the Dutch. Yeah, we stole that, didn't we? You know, it's insanity. And I frankly don't know, Jake, whether these people, I mean, I sat and watched here as somebody I cared a lot about virtually became a troll. Basically turned against me, they did more to hurt me than to help. And I've watched that happen to the militia movement. I've watched it happen to the patriot groups. I had one patriot group that were organizing some kind of patriot unity coalition so that the patriots would work together so we would have a clearinghouse for information. And it didn't work because they fought with each other. They found everything wrong with this individual or that individual, and this guy said this, and this guy didn't do this, and this guy said this, and nobody ever worked together. And that's what these people on the they aren't trying to organize anybody. They're possibly getting paid so much. They brag to me that they're getting paid to try to shut my show down, to block the internet, to do this, to do that. And I've said that the problem that we have today is basically what Jesus faced. How do you fight evil? And solved. How do you fight evil without becoming evil? Now, I've had guests on just yesterday that basically that helped start the militia before me, that started the militia idea, concept before me, J.B. Campbell. He was on my show yesterday. And he said, they're killing us. They're starving us. They're poisoning us. They're spraying us. Now they got drones. They've got they're organizing the SWAT teams. They've got the double 2-inch thick glass on the tanks that they're putting on the streets of America. It's time we fought back. And if somebody comes and take your gun, and I believe that's what they're going to do, executive order, stroke of the pen, the law of the land, you're now a criminal if you own a gun. If you don't turn that gun in, you're in trouble here. You're going to be charged with a crime. And I think that's what they're setting us up for. I've also talked about, we talked about the marijuana thing. They're making it a crime. Remember that Roosevelt did that when you were a kid? They made your parents turn in the gold, or they could have been charged. And so you gave the gold to the banks at $16 an ounce. How much is it now? 2,000, something like that. So, again, if we organize one square block, if we went out and talked to our own neighbors and said, look, we're going to turn the backyards into gardens. We're going to help you build a windmill and a wind generator and solar panels up on our roofs. Neighborhood associations will either get with it or not. And then we go to our sheriff and say, Sheriff, we're going to help protect our neighborhood. So there is not that two-minute or 20-minute response time. When I had my property in New Mexico, if there was a problem, if somebody broke down, if there was an accident, the sheriff called me. And if all of these neighborhoods are armed, we're not going to have looters. We're not going to have any crime. And if we can abolish the laws against victimless crimes and start putting the bankers in jail, what we've been doing is putting the wrong people in jail. And by the way, the Bible predicted this, I think, when they talked about the eighth beast. And I think the eighth beast, following Napoleon or Hitler or whoever was the beast du jour, the eighth beast is really the banking scam, the fractional banking scam that is designed to keep us impoverished. They have improved the art of slavery to the point the slave don't know they're slave. I'm not a slave. I can go get in my pickup and go get a beer. Watch. What do you think? Jake, are you with me? Yep. What happened to my... Alright, we're trying to get everybody back here. Stayed up on...
Philip?
Evidently, I must have hit a key phrase there and got the two of my lines taken down there. But we're back, Jake. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Again, if we work together, we could stop this. But they don't want you listening to me. They don't want to listen to you. And let me bring another point up here that I think is vital. I don't have any advertisers because people are afraid to advertise with me because one of these trolls will call up and say, "Oh, you're advertising with Free American? Man, we're going to tell all of our neighbors not to do business with you anymore. We're gonna blow the whistle on you. You're supporting a Nazi. You're supporting anti-government, racist, anti-Semite." But I do advertise for Timothy Bible College in the Little Red Schoolhouse because, folks, that is really the answer to what happened at Waco, to what happened at Sandy Hook, to what happened at Columbine. We don't need to send our children to go to these gun-free zones where they'd have no protection, where they're, and the colleges today, Jake, if you go into a college library, it's like going into a prison library, and it's like they're training us to follow orders to be good prisoners, if not just good slaves. And you know, be sure to pay your fair share, which is way more than is fair. I put up on my Facebook page the true division of wealth in this country, and the elite, the banksters, the banks that are too big to fail, control probably 90% of the wealth of this country, and the rest is doled out to you folks on welfare, you folks that work for a living.
Well, and you know, the government never has had any money, never will. It's taxes that they're mishandling that is our money to begin with. They don't have money. That's the mindset of too many of our people nowadays. They believe they're getting a check from the government, and they're not. It's somebody is putting that money in their hands, and that's us.
That's right. And it ain't even real money. I mean, we print a $100 bill. The banks pay 2 cents for it, and they issue it to you. Give it to the government with interest. Where's that interest come from, Jay?
Yeah. I think I had higher value paper in my bathroom this morning than what our dollar's worth right now.
Now, what about this eighth beast? What about this eighth beast? That what did you are the Bible scholar, and so I bow to your judgment on that.
There's a lot of visuals of, I hate to use the word symbol because that takes reality out of most people's minds, and it is a real thing, but there is a visual afforded man in the Bible for many of what we refer to as beasts, and a lot of this, if you look at the 4 parts in Daniel of what they called the beasts there, are the same kind of thing that are 4-parted in Revelation. These are the attributes or the effects or the characteristics of God as he approaches man, and I think you have the same thing on the other side. You've got one empire, if you will, is the antithesis of the other, and the other guy, you start putting numbers together. Of course, you got to be careful with that, but there are groups that have pulled together, and one of them very clearly this European common market. It started with a Revelation biblical number, which was a group of dignitaries, and as you would say, it probably could be really nailed down to 7 or 8 banks, and there were 10 heads altogether when they got together, and all this is actually provable for what's actually happened. It was written 2,000 years ago in the book of Revelation. We have these, quote, beasts that have come up, and I think a lot of times they are ideology. They are in the effect of the European common market, real powers, real government powers that have joined together and in the attempt, as they have before, to control the money of the world, and this is a banking consideration again. This started, if you go back to the Pharisees did banking. In Jesus' time, the Pharisees had banking going on. They had foreign exchange. They had usury and interest and all of those terminologies that we don't like that our current banking people use. The Pharisees were doing that. That's why Jesus tried to clean out his temple, because they were doing this in what was then called the church, and they're doing the same thing nowadays in the current church. ideology of Babylon. We are in a Babylonian ideology which is clearly a greed and pride-driven mindset, and that's why the bankers and the administration of this country and even the whole of Washington gets by with playing Monopoly, because our whole country has been educated and trained for so many generations. We've bought into it, and that's that communist takeover you referred to, as they have torn apart, as Randall Mock always calls this little three-legged stool or whatever. He's taken out the church, the family, education. There you got the collapse of society. They've hit us where we live, and that's where we are.
They have, all of this is no conspiracy theory. My friend Aaron Russo, who happened to be Jewish, talked to Nicholas Rockefeller, and he told him their plan was to chip everybody, to put a little RFID chip in everybody. And that way, if you didn't do what they were supposed to, they could just turn your chip off and you wouldn't be able to buy or sell. And so this, and I've seen the commercial
I put
for
the
it.
invitation for Aaron Russo's movie showing on the IRS here in the up in Austin. I did the prayer, the invocation for his presentation in downtown Austin. And he bared this.
Whoop. Did we lose you? Whoop, lost you again here. Hang on. What do we do here? Almost out of time here. You're going to get Jake back. Yeah, we're still trying here, but Aaron Russo, you did the invocation. Aaron Russo did Mad as Hell, and they ain't going to take it anymore. Aaron Russo ran for governor. I put him on the cover of my Free American magazine when he ran for governor. This ain't about anti-Semitism. I don't hate Jews. They have done pretty well controlling us and subverting the Talmudic Jews. Have basically subverted the Christian churches, turned them into Masonic lodges and other manners of atrocities. And they never talk about the Idumeans. They don't ever talk about the Canaanites. They don't talk about the Jews who say they're Jews but are not, or of the synagogue of Satan. We're almost out of time, Jake. I'd like for you to address that, because I've told people I don't care. The Constitution protects you however you want to worship. If you want to beat your head against a Wailing Wall, knock yourself out. I'll watch.
Well, I'll just make it real simple. I am all for you doing your religion like you want it. That is your right. I think the Jews have one of the better religions, and of course it starts with the same place ours does, with the Old Testament of the Bible. My problem with any of these people is that my Bible in total, when it gets to the New Testament, Jesus wrote the whole thing. He says I wrote the whole thing, and he says, without me, you don't get into heaven. That's the bottom line. I don't have anything against the Jew or the Muslim or anybody else. Some of them have, some of their stuff is pretty good on how to have good home life and all that sort of thing. But the bottom line is I want to be in heaven, and I would think anybody else would. And when you separate it that way, you're stuck with Jesus. And that's...
All
you
right.
don't have much time. I'm just going to leave it at that.
We're out of time. We're out of time. We'll let that be the last word. Dr. Jake Wade, Timothy Bible College, linked on my site. Do it. Thank you.
Call recording has been completed.